Okay, a beautiful, warm, very warm welcome to the gorgeous Trina who is joining me on the Abundance Club podcast this morning. Thank you so much. Okay, it's my morning, it's your evening. So we're over opposite sides of the globe as it tends to be. But thank you so much for taking the time to join me in the club today. Welcome, beautiful.
Thank you for having me, Amy. So wonderful to be here with your energy. I love it.
Yeah, it's really cool because we had a conversation, I don't know, it was a few weeks ago now on your beautiful podcast, The You Inside You, and you just held such a loving and open space. And, I think it's really it makes a difference. And I've been on podcasts before and obviously have guests as well. And we were just talking before going live about, being able to just flow with the energy and what wants to come through. And you did that so beautifully. I'll pop a link to your podcast and that episode because, yeah, it was really lovely. So I guess where I want to start, and I love that name for your podcast as well, the You Inside You. It feels very much in alignment with what we share, the nature of this podcast and what we love to dive into and riff on inside of the Abundance Club. So, why don't you share with us to begin with? Like, what really inspired, what was the impulse for you behind the You Inside You, and how does I guess, its message and its mission reflect the deeper essence of the work that you do with women? So, you can share a little bit about that within your own practice.
Yeah, I mean, my podcast was really inspired by my own deep journey to finding myself. And I think it's such a cliche statement sometimes to talk about, finding yourself and finding your truth and claiming your power. And I keep coming back to those statements, but it really was this sense of feeling lost in my 20s. I moved from Denmark to the US in my 20s, and already growing up, I kind of felt like I was meant to do something different, and I didn't really feel like I fit in, and struggled with, a mom that had mental health issues, and my parents' relationship was definitely not the model relationship. It was really messy, and I felt really responsible for my parents' journey and all of that. Just took that oldest child, being over responsible, people pleasing, following the rules, making sure that I was kind of perfect in that sense, because then everything was just right. So when I came to the US, was really overwhelming. I stayed with a family that was very emotionally unstable, abusive. I was really scared being here and didn't really feel supported at all. I felt very alone, very confused. But of course, stayed in it because I can persevere through everything, right? I cannot quit this. I cannot just go home. So I was saved out of that to by my ex-husband, which a lot of us who've gone through personal journey kind of know what being rescued looks like. Really fell in love, and thought that that was my relationship, moved over here. And in that part, I really lost myself. I'm a very intuitive, empathetic, caring, compassionate person by nature, but never really knew how to hold my own space and stand up for myself, and really portraying that and communicating that with people because I really didn't know.
Mm.
So the You Inside You really started in my early 20s of understanding what is self-love, because I knew I didn't love myself. I didn't know how to be there for myself, and I didn't even know what it looked like. I didn't have role models that showed me. I was not raised with those understandings and values of that. And the relationships that I saw around me were certainly not healthy either, and I didn't really know how to do this. So after, you know, hundreds and hours of therapy and reading hundreds of books and doing workshops, I finally started understanding what that inner true being was really about. Like, is it really real that you have this sense of internal guidance system that is your
Mm.
higher self or your true being, and this ego chatter that we get so what do you call it, um, seduced
Mm.
by, that we believe it's just an illusion. Like it was like the biggest aha moment with
Mm.
me, that there's two realities happening at one time. The you inside you. We think we're this human body that oh, my butt is too big and my breasts are too small. And, I'm really not good enough. And, my hair can't curl and, like
Yeah.
all this external stuff. And really started having this knowing that I've had for a very long time since I was born. I remember as a young girl having
Mm.
very intuitive skills. This you inside you wanted to come out. And that really, it got me on the trajectory of helping people, becoming a therapist, becoming a coach, energy healer. I've done almost anything in kind of the holistic realm, because I really believe that mind, body, spirit connection is essential. Like we can, anything manifests in our body, but it all starts within. So, after being a therapist for, over a decade and seeing people in person for a long time, I needed to reach a larger audiences. And I really got fascinated with podcasting. And I'm like, you know what? If I can inspire people with my journey and the hundreds of clients that I have helped find the same key to freedom, self-love, self-worth, and also interview people that have these stories. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. So that's really how I started my podcast. And I
Mm.
and I really, really love it. I really feel like it's a calling.
Mm. And you just have so, like when you talk and in your energy, which I can feel, you have such genuine warmth and care. And I always think it's fascinating. I always love to know the backstory because when we zoom out, we can see the way those hurdles, those challenges, those rock bottom moments were our teachers. Were gifts on the pathway that supported us. We talk like in the Kabbalistic teachings, which I love, talk about the cracking of the vessel in order to expand into a new vessel. And you mentioned about with the you inside you, but you mentioned also just about this knowing that you came back to. And I could feel that in your energy when women talk about this. It's a remembrance. It's like you came back to, and you mentioned about being younger and always being intuitive. And how powerful is this? And how do you support women to come back to that knowing? Because I even know, um, you being a psychotherapist, I'm not sure whether you had more of that traditional route initially and then went into more of the holistic realm. It can be quite very much up in our head. So how did you find and how do you find this transition to supporting the women that you work with to tap into that more vaster, not the ego self, which can often be ruling up in the mind, but to tap into that bigger, vaster consciousness that's
Mm.
leading us?
Well, it's interesting as you talking and asking me this, Amy. I really have a very unique way of listening to people beyond the words.
Mm.
I know now that that feeling of intuition and knowing that I had as a child is that I can read people really well. And not people, I connect with their souls. I
Mm.
can intuitively know who I have in front of me, not what they look like and what they do and their abilities, but really as an essence, a
Mm.
person. And when I work with women and I work with my clients, not only do I use modalities like mindfulness, meditation, energy healing, where we get into really, really deep cellular transformation and shifts, but I also help them with their language and how they speak about themselves.
Mm.
And the nuances that happen in between and making tweaks like that brings this awareness to them attuning into what's true for them. What is their
Yeah.
truth? And often clients come out a few months later and say, Trina, I had all the answers inside already. They're just baffled by the
Mm.
fact that they felt so lost and so confused. And yet at the end, like I had all the tools. For me, my job is to I piece the puzzles together. Like you already have the pieces. Everything is still perfect. And especially in transitions, especially in life transitions, me going through a divorce was one of my biggest transitions, besides moving to a different country. I mean, that was
Mm.
also quite a transition. It was like all my puzzle pieces got scattered and I had to put them together. And I put them together very wrong in the beginning because I had no foundation. I was really only looking at externals. I was looking to fix my husband or fix my marriage and fix myself. And as a result, I became the peacekeeper and the policer and the one that carried everyone's
Yeah.
emotions except for my own. I settled. I made myself small. I believe if I could just do better and work a little harder and stay quieter and behave better, and then things would change. But instead, I lost myself. I was so confused. And I reached that breaking point, not out of anger or out of exhaustion, but I remember asking myself, there has to be more than this. And talking about abundance, like I did not believe in abundance, to be honest. I believe that there is a fixed, limited
Mm.
ratio portion for each person. And the life that I wished for or dreamed about was unattainable. Like I did not have permission to do that. Trina, that's not, you might as well not dream about that stuff because it's just not possible. At least not for me. I don't have it. I, that was the stuck point in my life. And that is where I take a lot of women now to really understand that this self-limitation is just not real. That it's not just in our head, but it's in our body. It's this recognition that you're talking about that has always been there, that's attracted to talking about these things, that asks for the more. I want more in my life.
Mm.
How do I get more in my life? It's really more of a feeling we're chasing. It's a state of fulfillment.
Mm.
It's not, I need more money, or I want a house, or I want a relationship, or I want to fix my relationship, or I want my kids to behave better. At the end of the day, it's this true confidence, the alignment that we feel when we're in deep meditation that we're chasing. We just want to listen to who we are. We just want to trust and follow the instinct
Mm.
of who we are. And that's what I help people with. And it's just so amazing to see and watch not only their energy, like the bodies change. They
Mm.
show up differently.
Mm.
They're lighter. They smile more. They have more fun.
Mm.
They make more money, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I love everything that you're saying here. There's a few things that really stood out to me and I could feel, I mean, I feel the energy in the words as well. And when you said that more, right? It's such excitement there when we allow it. I think that when we first and you tend to it seems like you work with a lot of people because this has been your background and so many women have this tendency to shapeshift, to people please, to be the peacekeeper, to carry the weight of responsibility for everybody else in order to drive their worth and their sense of belonging. And I do want to talk about that because I know that you teach a lot around boundaries and how this can actually, because we're taught to believe that it's selfish to not do that, right? To not put others first, to put up those boundaries. It's selfish. So we're conditioned in a world that reinforces self-abandonment over self-love and self-prioritization. So maybe let's start there before we get into the next piece, which is around when you start to listen to that inner voice and it's guiding you to actually go after something more for yourself when you have been conditioned to believe that this is enough. I'm not going to ask for too much. I can't have it all. Like, I'm sure you're just familiar with this narrative and these familiar stories, right? Let's talk a little bit about that and your journey in understanding that actually letting go of those people pleasing tendencies and saying no and putting in those boundaries is the greatest act of
Mm,
self-love, not only for you, but in terms of then what ripples out into the
mm,
world and allows you to receive everything that
mm.
you desire.
Absolutely. A true boundaries is self-love and self-respect. So when we have that deeper understanding of who we are and tapped into the unconditional love that I am enough and I love myself for who I am and I accept myself, combined with the respect of what I need is okay and I can communicate my truth. And if other people do not like it, that's okay too, because that's about them and not me. So, boundaries for the longest time, even as a therapist, I always saw as an outside tool, something that is external, something that we list to other people to keep them at a distance or put the line in the sand of you don't step over here unless this blah 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 blah, and it's almost comes like a ninja move physical thing, right? And we're
Like
we're keeping this
quite a masculine
kind
view,
of
like
hard,
stance
right?
of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes with like firmness and maybe even loud voice. That's kind of how I imagined in my head, not necessarily how I taught it in therapy, but it was more of an external tool. Now, after really understanding people's journey and the deep self of or the deep sense of self-awareness that I have gained in this deepest sense of self, it is an internal journey of natural consequences and boundaries that happens from being very clear on what you want and what you do not want. And based on the knowing and based on how you allow yourself to own that, really, that self-respect. I deserve this out of self-love and I own it. I stand up for myself. I speak my voice. I say no when I mean no. I say yes when I mean yes. It might be uncomfortable at first, but you're going to get better at it. That becomes a natural boundary. And you find that you actually, quote unquote, set less boundaries
Mm.
by just showing up with this energy
Mm.
than actually having to, quote unquote, set boundaries, which has actually been in a huge aha moment for me being on this journey for a long time. So this is something that I teach in what I call the integration code, how you integrate moving from the old version to yourself into this newer level, this upgraded level of yourself. And a lot of times we kind of linger in between the two because we can't really find our place and we can't really recognize this new level and higher vibration that we're at. So we tend to go back to familiar things. We kind of, what we call regress, but really don't. We just step back into seeing something that's safe and familiar,
Mm.
instead of really truly embracing and integrating at that new level. So boundaries is a natural thing of that, because otherwise we're not going to navigate relationships that protest when we start changing. You know, how many of us have stepped into newness and then all of a sudden people are looking at you like you have horns coming out of your face. Or they're like, I don't know you anymore. Like, who are you? Right? And what are you doing? I mean, that's like a waste of time, or whatever judgment they're coming with. And that I was not prepared for. And a lot of people are not prepared for, because there's the urge to change.
Mm.
But when we see that protest coming in, that can be really hard. So that's where the boundaries need to be established really well. We need to have confidence and understanding my inner guidance and trusting it. And how do I navigate the outside then? How do I navigate other people? That can be challenging.
Yeah. And so beautiful. It's almost like it's less it becomes when it's that inside job. I mean, everything is, right? And life just reflects that. But it's less then about the need for protecting yourself. And it's more about how much can I be in my light. And when I'm in my light and I'm in my truth and my essence, there's a natural projection. And I've found that as well. It's like there's less need to consciously enforce those boundaries.
Yes.
It becomes a natural byproduct of you being in your truth. Having said that, I know that this can be challenging as well. Like we have prioritized belonging, safety and belonging over authenticity, over being in our truth. And I think as women, you know, we're starting to find more of our voice, our natural voice, our authentic voice, which is the emanation of our soul, right? It's the emanation of our truth. And I think both of us love supporting women to tap into that and use their voice for change, to be a leader, for, you know, whatever way that they're called to be of service. And I think that there's a lot here in this that have come into this world and this paradigm at this time of awakening that feel called to use their voice and speak in a really truthful and authentic way. So, what are some ways that we can overcome this need for belonging and approval in order to be our most authentic self? Because I think we tend to focus so much on how am I going to be received and perceived and what's this person going to think. And particularly like even in podcasting or sharing yourself on social media or these things that we're naturally a part of, right? If we're, you know, in online business. So how do we become more familiar and safe in our authenticity over the sense of needing to belong?
Mm, that's a great question. And I think I want to start with first kind of giving a little bit of a technique that I use with a lot of people. And I'm not really sure like what step I'm hiding that under yet, but this is a really, really great way to start understanding how we respond to situations. So when we're in that protective mode, right? We're setting boundaries and we have a lot of stuff in our lives that we do not want. We tend to want to escape that. So we're running away from. And when we're in run away from energy, we attract more of it. We feel very lost. We feel very confused because we don't really know where we're going. You probably heard that story of a child growing up in an abusive family and they want to move out at 16 and they find the first love and they want to get married and they move out of the house, ended up being another abusive relationship, right? Because they just want to get out of a dysfunctional, unhealthy relationship into another, which is, really part of my story as well. Until I learned that there is it's so important to be very clear on where am I going. So there's a different energy in running away from than moving towards
Mm.
something. It can be the same thing, but it has a very different energy. One comes out of lack, right? One comes out of abundance. I have clearly defined what I want, and I'm seeking that. And I'm seeing it in people. Jealousy pops up a lot. So if you're jealous of someone, you can appreciate and recognize the characteristics in that person that really just tells you that there's something that you are desiring. Your soul is
Mm.
desiring qualities of that person or that situation. And if I use it as information and move towards that instead of seeing it as, oh my gosh, I don't have it. I better run away even more and hide and, make myself smaller because I'll never get that. That's not the point here. We use it as information. So I would really, really recommend that whoever's listening to this, spend today and notice your thoughts and notice that when you're making decisions, are you making them from, I'm running away from something or avoiding something? Or am I actively moving towards what I desire the most?
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
And then I want to get into the integration code um, that I implement with my clients that really has the 5 steps. And the last step is community. We cannot change in a vacuum. It's very lonely. I was very, very lonely and felt very wrong and not appreciated for my gifts and who I was growing up. Not at everybody else's fault, but really the fact that I hadn't fully understood it myself and integrated it myself and really felt confident in the fact that I am unique and I'm special and I have gifts and I want to cultivate that. So for us to create a community and not feel so alone, it requires us to upgrade into our knowing and our understanding and our own genius. Well, that takes time or that never really ends, right? We
Yeah.
have layers and
Mm.
layers and cycles that we got to do that. But what we can do is when we have identified that moving towards, we've done some upgrading, we might have done some coaching or some therapy, and we now know this is what I want. The quicker you can accept it, the quicker you can find your people. So when you get through the acceptance stage and you then get into your community, which is the last step of kind of my 5-step cycle here, is the community will help you upgrade even more. That means listening to this podcast, listening to more episodes of this podcast, listening to other podcasts, meeting with a coach that really resonate with you, that really speaks to your heart. It's those little things that just make you feel good, make you smile, that allow you to trigger something like familiar inside and be like, that just felt good, or I felt really good around this person. I felt like that with many, many people in my life. I didn't know why,
Mm.
I just wanted more of it. So that tells you something. So get in those rooms, listen, marinate in the energies that feel really good, and you'll feel less confused and less lost, and you will get through the healing steps and understanding and put in puzzle pieces. All that stuff will come over time. My puzzle pieces, are not put together yet, but they're more clear until they
Mm.
may fall apart again, and I have to assemble them again.
Mm.
Um,
I'm
so I
so
hope that
glad you
kind of
mentioned it.
answered the
Yeah,
question enough.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because I think when you go on this journey of whatever you want to call it, like awakening, self-realization, and you mentioned about, popping in those loving boundaries as well, and that there's going to be people in your life that are not available for that preferred the you that was open wide and that didn't have those boundaries. And
People
I know,
pleasing and was
correct,
very in service for them. Yes.
correct. They derived benefit from you not having those boundaries and doing the things for them and all of that. And I know when I was on your podcast, you had that beautiful analogy of going up the lift, up the elevator. And so let's talk about this upgrade. And I think it's really important to normalize. I think, first of all, yeah, having that community alongside you, because we can be our worst inner critic, our own enemy. We can keep ourselves in our own prison without realizing that we have the key to unlock limitless freedom and abundance, and to help have people who are on the same journey, or maybe they've gone before you, or maybe they're a coach, to remind you of what's possible, like to remind you of your capacity. I think is so important. But let's also talk about what happens on that upgrade, when we do feel that all of a sudden, and I'm sure you talk with women about this, I know I do, all of a sudden there are things, people, situations, behavioral patterns that just do not resonate with the you that you're becoming in that upgrade, which is really about remembering who you are, remembering your truth and your essence, and peeling away use that word of illusion, like peeling away all of the illusions.
Mm,
Let's talk a little bit about that, like how we deal with that stripping away,
mm,
what that can look like, and
mm.
what are some of the tools that can help us to navigate that upgrade that can
Yeah.
feel like a complete crumbling. It can feel like everything is leaving my life, right?
Yeah, pretty much. It can feel pretty dark and lonely at times. We've been so conditioned to have a certain role in life. And as we awaken, as we become more conscious of that, there is a natural process of having to not only understand that, but kind of do some of that healing work to go through it. So, if you still have unresolved trauma and things from your childhood that have not been uncovered and talked about, put out in the light,
Mm.
given a name, that needs to be dealt with first, because we inevitably act out of those old wounds, and those old stories, and especially trauma will come and bite us at some point in our lives, where we are forced to face it, for us to either not be seriously ill and sick in our body, because it will manifest through our body, or really be destructive in terms of, you know, substance abuse, or, maybe even suicide, unhealthy relationships, etc. So the first part is really, the healing journey needs to start in a tremendous amount of self-awareness. And then we're kind of going back to identifying, well, what is it that I want? And how do I allow myself to identify what I want, even if I'm around people that do not have that same interest? And the fact that I might be the only one speaking this and feeling this way doesn't mean that I can't do it, or I shouldn't be doing it, or I don't have the permission to do it. It just means that your soul has a deeper calling or a deeper purpose than other people in our life. They may not care less about personal growth and inner knowing and more in life. They're content and happy of where they're at. But if you're not, then there's a new level, and there are new rooms, and it requires you to get in the elevator, which can really take you anywhere if you trust it, and allow yourself to be quiet enough and sometimes alone enough for some time for you to be able to hear and listen to what floor you're going to, and at the same time equip you Because these people are not teaching you that. They're teaching you what not to do, right? It's really in the elevator that you're going to get some of the manuals that are going to be downloaded from within to kind of equip you with the new rooms. So in that moving up, it can be scary, it can be lonely, but there's sometimes people in the elevator with you that are going to cheer you on, say, we can do it. These are those rooms we want to marinate in. Even if you're just listening to this podcast, it's full of hope and invitations and motivations and uplifting words that will resonate with your soul. And you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to stay in the elevator just a little bit longer. Like I'm
Yeah.
gonna be with this. And then when we get up to another floor, we may feel out of place at first. I remember first time I stepped into the more entrepreneurial world of people being dressed very differently than therapists and talk about very different things and very I would call them, I don't know what to call it, boastful, but very confident ways
Mm.
of speaking about themselves, which I was never taught. And I felt like a fish out of water for sure. It was so scary. I want to run back in the elevator and leave.
Go
But I
back to
stayed
where
in the
it's
room.
comfortable and familiar and yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
But I stayed in the room and I observed. And this is where the skills come in of helping with the self-talk and the chatter and then judgments of ourselves. If we don't quite have those skills yet, we might want to leave the room for a little bit, maybe go back in the elevator with your coach or your therapist or somebody that can help you with those skills because we need support. We're not going to get up to higher floors alone. It's just, we can spend as many times, in the woods. I mean, maybe in like deep meditation on some lonely planet for, 10 years. I don't know. But we're social people and we need help and we need guidance. And we can do it faster if we
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
good high energy guidance.
Yeah.
And then we can go back in the room. We can still go back to the old floor and we know the party moves, and we know how to speak their language. But you might recognize, just like you said, that we don't fit there anymore. I don't
Yeah.
belong here anymore.
Yeah.
I can be here and I can learn to be content for a short period of time in this, being who I am. But I'm going to travel back up again.
Mm.
And now I'm going to look at the next floor so differently because I was back and feeling, I don't belong here anymore. And this is where the integration code come in because now we can kind of feel in limbo because like I don't really belong up here, but I don't really belong down here either. Where do I
Yeah.
belong?
Yeah, it's that real in between the levels that
In
I
between the
think,
levels.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
And do I really belong up here? Do I deserve it? Is that really me?
yeah,
People don't really see me for what I believe that I can be, but why are they not treating me like that? Why are
mm,
they not? Why am I still so confused? Why am I still comparing myself to all those people
mm,
that I now envy? And I know that I shouldn't, but I still do.
mm,
So it becomes this discomfort. And that is truly what I help women really embody, not just an understanding of it, but really integrating it into your body, a soul understanding of that you are stepping into a new identity,
yeah, yeah,
which is the shedding that you're talking about is really, it's just more of who you are and less of what you thought it was going to look like.
mm,
And that just allows you to move more fluidly into those new rooms, higher, lower, wherever you feel
yeah,
called for.
yeah. And when you're in that in between, this is where it's so important that you are resourced with the people in the communities that remind you that you've got this, that
Yeah.
reminds you that you're exactly where you need to be. And I don't think we can hear that enough because it's really easy for the old patterns to pull us back down to that familiar
Mm,
floor because this is what we've known, and
mm,
it's just feels like a second skin, and it feels comfy. And I think we do for a while, we bounce up in between trying to find who am I, find ourselves in that in between. And I think it's also important to realize that when you do step into those rooms and you do see other people, and you might not feel quite there yet, you might start to question, like, who am I to do this? Do I know enough? Am I enough? All of this. But you wouldn't be there if you weren't meant to be there as well.
mm,
And that's why I always say, like, the callings, your soul's calling, that desire, that feeling for more, the reason that that is there for you is because that reality is literally, like, it's available for you. It's there. It's there
mm.
for you. Otherwise, you wouldn't feel it. You wouldn't feel that desire for more. So let's circle back to that feeling for you when you knew that there was actually more that was available for you. And you spoke about, which I think is really common, the way that you related to abundance as being some kind of fixed, finite,
Yeah.
with a ceiling, and this is what it is. And the work, I mean, this podcast is all about breaking through that glass ceiling and realizing that when you remember you're infinite, you are available for the infinite. So what does abundance mean for you right now? And
Mm,
how does your work support people to open themselves up to
mm,
limitless, to shift from what is probable to what is just infinitely possible?
mm. I think abundance exists in every single thing that I focus in, whether it's, resources for my kids, or the way that the levels I want my relationship to go to money, to travel opportunities, to how my house looks. And I mean, you can really put it on anything. Do we always allow ourselves to tap into that? No, because we have so many programs running all the time that kind of keeps us stuck. And we come up with things like, I don't really have a choice, or I don't really have time for this and can't really afford that, or yada, yada, yada. Still catch myself doing that
Oh, the
stuff.
stories. Oh, the stories.
Yes. Yeah. Um, so it's a lot of catching yourself. It's a lot of catching yourself, and it's a lot of focusing a lot of times on one thing that I can do, or a story I want to rewrite. It might be a theme that we're having, or an intention we're having for the day, or even focusing on something like envy or jealousy. What comes up in me for me when we talk about that is exactly what you were saying before. There's a reason why something triggered inside of me, or I see something in you that I desire that 100 other people might not see or feel or evoke. Okay. And sure, it can be tied into some trauma stuff and some stories. And of course, we need to investigate that. But if you are open and awake, a lot of times it is because there's a resemblance of, there is an abundance within you that you may have had a ceiling on, that you really desire, and now you're seeing it in front of you. So why not practice that? Why not make that an intention instead of making it lack? Instead of running away from it, right? I'm walking towards it. I love the way she walks. I love the way she speaks on stage. Well, what is it that I love about it? And what can I do today that's just slightly outside of my comfort zone, that is fully in alignment with who I am? And how can I practice this? This is where skill building comes in, which is also part of my integration code, because the upgrading requires you to act differently. It requires you to shift some things to make it more aligned with where you want to be, who you want to be. So, how can I show up differently today that gets me closer to this envy, jealous picture that I have of this person? And trust me, when you meet that person or that person shows up a year later, 5 years later, a month later, you'll be surprised how your feelings have completely
Yeah.
changed about that person. And it's mind blowing.
Mm.
And then we celebrate, okay? Then we celebrate and then we recognize and we give ourselves credit for the growth that we have done. Because if the feeling is no longer there, guess what? We've upgraded. I
Yeah.
feel like that. I'm now in alignment with what she represented before. And now I'm doing it too. How cool is that? And guess what? Now things are changing around us. Our community has changed. We might start be friends with that person that before was like, oh my gosh, I'm so starstruck, or I will never be like her. Guess what? She might be more stuck than you are now,
Yeah.
right? We have completely shifted. She might be going down in the elevator, you going up on the elevator. But it's the embodiment and just focusing on one thing that can just hold my attention intention for today to create that shift. And the abundance, really, because it there's no limits to it. There's no limits to how much we open in an area. I was going to say like how much we can, do or achieve, but it's not about the doing, right? But we become skillful at something the more we open to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So beautiful. It's such an invitation that even when there is those triggers, and whether that is jealousy or whatever it is, can we begin to see it as an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
As a doorway opening rather than something that makes us feel contractive, like I'm no good enough, I'm not there yet. But like, what is this person showing me? Because it's showing, she's showing me, he's showing me, it's showing me hidden potential, right? Like potential with me. And how could I turn this contraction around into my greatest expansion when I see it as a gift and I can transmute that energy into more, and integrate it into my wholeness. I think that it's so beautiful. And when you can have someone like yourself who can just remind people of that and to point that out to people that this can be, when we allow it, this can be an opportunity because everything here on this level, everything here in life at the moment is here to teach you, right? To either reveal where we're not free or to open the doorway to our greatest expansion and
Mm.
evolution. So that's so beautiful. If you could whisper one truth to women who feel like they've lost connection to who they are and to themselves, and I feel like there's a lot of this at the moment. Like, what would that be? What would you offer?
You're not alone.
Mm.
Like you're not alone. We all feel a version of this and we just don't speak about it. Get into the rooms and start learning the language. I find that I spend a lot of times creating language for people around this, how to properly label your emotions, how to properly understand and interpret events, conflicts, external stuff to make it about a teaching and opportunity moment. Talking about self-talk. There's just so much of the language that we have not been exposed to and can't even come up with. It's like walking down the aisle in the grocery store and there is like two choices of cereal boxes and it's like either this or that today, and it's like that every day. But what if you can all of a sudden choose from, the hundreds of cereal boxes that they now have in all grocery stores. In Denmark, coming to the US, I've never seen that
Oh
many
yeah, the US
many
has got
grocery
everything.
cereal boxes. It was overwhelming. But the more opportunity, the more choices we have, or we perceive that we have, the more power we feel. If you want more and you want to feel more powerful in your life, we have to expand our choices. We have to expand our language. We have to actually see the opportunities. And again, this is what I spent probably most of my time with my clients outside of the parts work and the body work and the upgrading that we do in deep meditation and with energy work. It is really wrapping our mind around the dead ends that our mind goes into with the limited beliefs. But really, what do I move towards? Like, what option do I have in this moment? What choice do I have in this moment if I can't do this?
Mm.
And a lot of times it's just a big blank space for people.
Mm.
This is why people listen to podcasts. This is why we read books, right? This is why we watch movies. And because we're actually expanding our repertoire of understanding relationships, understanding ourselves, understanding our possibilities, understanding the abundance of what we can tap into. Unfortunately, it can still be very intangible and quite undefined. So the more specific you can get with a coach or with your language, the more clear you're going to be, the better boundaries you're going to set, the better relationship you're going to have, better self-understanding you have, better confidence you're going to have, the more you're going to ride the elevator and have fun instead of screaming on the way. Right?
Yeah, let it be fun and exciting, right? Like it's just life. We're here having this experience, and
Mm.
it's, I just think so many beautiful soul truths and reminders. And I hope for those who are listening, just feel activated and, just a real permission slip to be who you truly are. And then even when we navigate the seasons that we do, like I think it's also about normalizing the sense of loneliness or the discomfort and knowing that that's a season. Spring is going to bloom again, and the new blooms that come through are going to actually be representative of who you've become in that season where it felt like you were on your own and you were the little bud beneath the soil and in the darkness, not knowing what's to come. And I think such a beautiful reminder that so many are going through this alongside you. And I just think that that's what's so liberating when, particularly as women, we can come together and this is why when someone shares their story, there is a whole group of women that are nodding, going, I see you because I'm going through that myself, that upgrade, and it can be terrifying and liberating. And it's just the mix of all of the different emotions. So to have someone like yourself who can guide people and remind you that, it's safe for you to be in this place where you are right now. Let's establish a whole new level of safety. And it's actually the most liberating place that you can be, even if it doesn't feel like that right now. So beautiful, Trina. Thank you so much for being here. I want you to share how people can connect with you, how they can find you. We can pop some details in the show notes with how whatever way you want people to be able to reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. My podcast is called You Inside You. Subscribe to that. I have beautiful conversations on that. It really is getting in the room and marinating in that energy. I also coach people one-on-one. This is where we go through the integration code, or I have kind of a relationship program too, where people are moving and embracing relationship freedom, how to be fully who you are. and without losing connection with others. Yeah, I offer different programs that people can reach out to me personally through my website, trineschmidt.com. Yeah, and I have a gift for the people listening to this. Since community is so important to me, and I've kind of let groups and communities out of my living room for a few years.
Mm.
I created this meditation spiritual group for some friends in my circle that we did for almost 2 years. I love bringing people together. I love influencing and deepening the journey of having people in the same room. So um, I'm going to offer a 2-month free membership to my Conscious Connections
Mm.
group. This is a group that meets twice a month. It offers coaching, meditation with like-minded women that want to continue to deepen and have that sustainable change, celebrating our growth, which is not always what we recognize. And I find that recognition is really important for us to keep growing and keep getting in the elevator.
Mm.
um, so conscious connection is doing that. So if you want to do this alone, if you're not necessarily needing coaching or therapy, this is for you. So on my website, trineschmidt.com /free gift, you can claim that gift. If you're listening to this episode, I really want to give that to people
Mm.
that want to be connected.
Yeah, beautiful. What a gift. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's always delightful to sit down with you and just be in conversation with, and I think we both really are open and set the intention to of what wants to come through for this community and for whoever's listening to this podcast. So if you are listening and you're here with us, thank you so much. And feel free to share this with someone that you feel would receive benefit, that would receive the positive impact. Feel free to share it. Please make sure that you are following along to the Abundance Club and You Inside You. Give us a review. That always helps to keep these transmissions alive, and just share and spread the love. So thank you so much for being here, Trina. As always, such a delight. And I can't wait for our worlds to collide again down the track, as I'm sure they will, because it's really lovely to just share your energy.
Thank you, Amy.